And we're back. No, dude. Welcome. It's been well. I've seen you a week ago.
Yeah, I've seen you more in person in the last 2 months than probably I have over the last 3 years. But
Yeah,
virtual rejoinings.
yeah. It's been pretty cool though, and I think we got another one shortly. Hopefully, um, April's around the corner. But and then what else is on the calendar? Summer Strong, and then Convergence and the Wolf Brigade.
Are you going to try and come up for the Berryman Trail thing?
I won't. It's my son's graduation.
So. Oh, well, that's all right. All out. Yeah,
Yeah, I'll be. I'm doing the whole dad thing that day.
Sure.
Sign and everything.
Nice. Yeah. The whole deal. The whole proper coming prim.
Yeah. No, that'll be good though.
Yeah, that'll be a fun one though. On that, anybody who's interested, May 27th at the Berryman Trail, which is outside of St. Louis, 27-mile hike in one day. We did it last year. Incredibly cathartic experience. What a blast. Camped the night before. It's the second time I ever slept outside. I've now racked up a third time I've slept outside. So this is really just killing it on the outdoorsman front. But it was a wonderful time. I've described that before. It's just walking. It's walking for a long time. I know you've walked for longer than that. But doing an activity like that with a community of people, man, it's something special. And when we did it last year, it was a great experience. So we took off about 4:30ish or so in the morning. And I don't know, I think we wrapped up around 3 or 3:30 that afternoon. And we talked about it a little bit before, but I have more, it's that idea about days that don't blend into things. I have more specific memories and stories from that one day, from that shared experience. I mean, it's what we've talked about before, or specifically the thing I've taken away from you. It's that shared suffering with people. And I think the word suffering is relative to what the actual task is, because no one's pretending like we're suffering walking. But it's doing a shared, I don't know, trial together, or a shared kind of thing that seems crazy, seems unreasonable. But as you get going, once you get to mile 20, you're like, oh, that's not what I thought it was going to be. We can keep going. And then for the next 3 weeks, your pinky toe's a little fucked up, and then it gets fine again.
Shared suffering, man, the whole premise of our deal, like shared suffering and food are the two pieces of any recipe. Like if you wanted to hack, I don't want to say friendship, but if you wanted to hack the whole, let's get close quickly.
Oh
yeah. I don't believe that there are two ingredients that would make it happen any faster than those two. And suffering being relative, but at the same time, there's just a level of repetitiveness in certain things where it just brings it out of you. Even if you're in the most in shape, or, don't get me wrong, there are anomalies, but yeah.
Yeah, the food thing. After that, I remember, so after we got done, me and Charlie and Tom and Jared stopped at this just small-ass biker bar out in the middle of nowhere, and those were the best goddamn barbecue nachos I've ever had in my life after that day. Man. And we just toasted.
Yeah, I tell the story all the time. The best orange I ever had in my life was, I think it was Selection. I don't remember where it was, but it was after one of the longest ruck marches I ever done at the time, up until that point.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it was 20 miles, something like that. And I remember finishing, getting this orange and eating it, and feeling like I could taste every fiber of sugar and everything in it. And I still, man, to this day, I eat oranges and I'm like, bleh.
Chasing that orange feeling. You're like, some people are chasing edges. I'm chasing oranges.
I'm looking for. Fuck you, orange.
Yeah, bullshit. How come nobody told me oranges could taste this good?
Yeah. So I'm always looking for that orange. It's I'm chasing that dragon.
It's good.
But yeah. I get it. I don't know, man. That's what I'm constantly, I think, looking for. I mean, shit, we started a whole show behind it.
So, well, and that's even what I know we're going to chat about is this idea of these experiences. And we've had a couple over the last couple months that I think have brought that to fruition. It's these things that I can't describe anything other than experiences. I've said that line before. I used to go do stuff, and now I go and have experiences, and those are not the same thing. It's not the same thing going to a place and doing a thing versus being somewhere and experiencing something. I don't really know if someone was like, well, what do you mean expand on that? I don't really know if I can other than that, other than just going into a situation. And I think what I've taken away from both of the things, from both Winter Strong and then also from, we've now done 2 of the Not Dead Yet Life hard reset retreats, is I'm learning to continuously let go of expectations I have going into experiences.
Yeah.
Not good or bad. Not good or bad either way, but just
letting it happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, just letting it happen. Like, it's almost like instead of getting an itinerary, I just want to show up.
100%. Yep.
Yeah. With the experience thing, like I usually refer to it as moments, right? Like, these are, I'm a collector of moments.
Mm-hmm.
And these are things that, like, even if I come to do the same experience again, it's not the same. And I know that, and I want that thing. And I think it's also one of those deals. It's like that, I don't remember who said the quote, is if it's Maya Angelou but it's like, you might not remember what somebody said. I'm paraphrasing because I'm fucking it up.
Mm-hmm.
But you might not remember what someone says, but you'll remember how they make you feel. It's the same thing for moments and experiences, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I might not ever remember the joke, but I remember laughing until my belly hurts,
mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
I remember the feeling behind it. I remember all those things. And for me, it's constantly the search is like these moments of just like, oh, it's like when we were at the Arnold.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I had the reason because I was not very happy about that large group of people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Large group of people who weren't really interested in, a fair majority who weren't super interested in moving out of the way for other people when you walk by them.
That too. Listen. It's a pet peeve. But the other thing was just like, we're just there. And then when I watched the specific interaction with Matt, where the guy comes up and his wife is filming him talk to Matt, and you can see like she's so proud of her husband for changing his life based on the thing he saw in Matt. And I was like, that's the moment, that's the thing you're looking for, right? That, at least for me, that was like, I was like, oh, okay, that's why we're here. Like, we're in this fucking zoo because of that. Like, yeah, there's all these other shenanigans and fun and blah, 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 but that was the thing that I was like, oh, okay, I got it now. So, which I have you been to Arnold before? Was that your first one?
No, I mean, like in that capacity, I've gone before. It's just like roaming around, and that one was the one this year was significantly smaller crowd than years past when I've gone. So for whatever that's worth, in terms of like how many people there, it was much less like cattle call-y than ones I've been to in the past, and this one was still pretty lively. But yeah, it's an interesting thing, man. You have a collection of people that come to think, and this is, so yeah, you talk about experiences. And I pointed out when we were there. So in the world of strength training stuff, in the world of powerlifting, whatever it is, like I'm not somebody who's super hip to a bunch of the, whatever we want to call them, iconic or popular cast of characters who populate this world. And a thing that I found wonderfully, delightfully fascinating, and I don't mean this in any irony at all, is the people who were there, that there were people who were waiting in line for what I assume could be hours to get a chance to meet these people. And again, I don't mean that condescendingly or anything like that at all. I mean it like, I think that's amazing. I love that. I love this idea of like, this is something that this is a person, a thing or whatever that I'm so interested in seeing or being a part of, that I'm going to come to this event and I'm going to dedicate a chunk of this day waiting to get to have a, 2 to 5 minute conversation with this person.
Yeah.
And that's their experience. That's it. That's what they're there for. I think that's great.
Dude, the longer I kind of travel around, meet people, have these conversations, the more I understand like how, in some respect, life is a niche.
Mm-hmm.
Like, right? Because that idea to those guys and to even me or whatever doesn't seem very foreign.
Mm-hmm.
But then if you were to talk to the average person and be like, yo, like, we met Daniel Bell, they're like, who?
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, the walking embodiment of Thanos. Like, we met him.
Right. We saw him.
Like, yeah, we saw him. Like, what do you, they don't understand, right? And so when you say that, yeah, I think that is really cool, but two, it just makes me think about niches a lot. It's been a thing that's kind of been on my mind a bunch lately because I've been having friends in these very different circles,
mm-hmm.
and then having these conversations where people are sure that their thing is representative of the whole thing.
Mm.
And then trying to explain to them, like, this only applies to you and your buddies. And so, it's one of the cool things about, like, I don't have some, like, grand things to tell a lot of people, but one of the things that I do have, and that happens to me constantly, is the fact that, like, I get to see these niches and these groups and then how different they are and how alike they are. And then I go back and I'm like, oh, you don't get it.
Mm.
Like, no one else sees. It's like our friend group, right? Like, getting in an ice bath to you and me and the guys that we know is and fitness people. There's a group of fitness people that, like, that's just what you do.
It's what you do.
Yeah. But then there's, like, a whole other segment of my life and family and friends that are like, you did what?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You're gonna purpose, like, you're gonna catch a cold.
This is why I told you don't go outside without a hat on. And now you're just getting in cold water. Right?
Now you're just gonna just jump in cold water
on purpose.
On purpose. You freeze to death and die.
Yeah. Well, and it's one of my favorite things about this group of, whether it's the people that we continue to meet when we do the retreats, or the people who are members of the group, is these, it's like Garrett being a sprint track cyclist. Right, like what an incredible thing that is, that I have zero frame of reference for, but as a thing that dude trains for, practices for, executes. He's getting ready to go to Portugal in 2 weeks for a competition and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, there's so much beauty in that being such the specific thing that you're like, no, this is my shit. Like, this is my shit. And if you want to, and from chatting with him when we were out there, when him and I were out there one time. And I love that too, because it's like, if you want to talk about it, I'll talk to you about it. Like, I'll tell you all about it. But also knowing that, like, you don't know what I know about it. So if you want to learn, you can learn. I'll tell you. But if you just want to also be like, yeah, this is super fucking cool because we fly around this super small circle on bikes really fast. I'm like, that's just objectively cool on its own, regardless of the level of, like, detail, granular stuff that you can get into it.
Yeah. I think we need more cool shit. I mean,
yeah,
that's a whole other conversation. But, like, just to do something because it's cool, I feel like people want to shame you for it. Like, and I'm here for it. I'm like, that's just cool, so we should do more of it.
Yeah, it's a lot cooler than just, like, going to Panera a couple times a week. Like, do something interesting.
The Netflix selection screen.
Yeah, that's right. And that's, I mean, that's exactly what Winter Strong is. So that's exactly what Winter Strong was for me, in terms of being exposed to so many things that are so completely foreign to me. And you primed me for it. Not that I thought it was going to be anything different. Not that I thought that it was going to be something where I showed up and anybody's going to be like, you don't bow hunt. Like, I didn't think that's what it was going to be, but to show up and to have it be this wild collection of people who are just, again, abject masters at what they do. And just that's another thing too. I'm trying to frame this, watching people who are masters at things do that thing casually is a really special thing as well. When it's people who have done this thing, whatever it is, at a high level, competitively, at an Olympic level, whatever it is, and to watch, like, on the archery range there, right? Like, watching Corey just sit there and just chat it up and then randomly just, like, knocking arrows and just shooting stuff. I'm like, oh, damn, this is wild. That this is also just a thing that you're just like, this is also just fun for me to do.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, anytime somebody's really good at something, or anytime you can watch mastery or whatever, it's almost like a little secret, right? You're watching, it's like you're trying to get in on the secret, and you're just like, oh, what is it? What am I watching? You know, Winter Strong Go, man. Dude, I have, this is my second one, and I still struggle with how to talk about it to people. You know, because you're like, what's like an adult camp for hunters and meatheads, but not really. And then some of the things that come out of it are pretty impactful. So it's like, man, like, how do you couch that? But then I end up with the whole, which is a kind of a, I don't want it to be it's the thing that I've ended up just telling people a lot now for everything. And it's just go find out. I can only tell you so much. I can only say, like, you know, what's it like to walk 50 miles? And I'm like, just go find out.
Go find out. Yeah. Well, and there's also something really powerful about, because this is also what that wasn't, which is being surrounded, again, by that level of people that operate at such a high level at their thing. But nobody is, I'm trying to think of a way to compare it to kind of like my old life, so to speak. So in my old world, I went to plenty of like chamber business meetings and things like that with, like, you know, people who are professionals, business professionals in their field, and going to lunches and standing around and talking and all that kind of stuff. And there's a sense when you're in things like that sometimes that everybody in those, not everybody, people in those settings are concerned with making sure that, you know, they're really good at the thing that they're there for.
Wow.
This is different though, because you're surrounded by these people who are, you know, world class champions at their thing, people who have identified themselves as, or not identified, who have earned recognition as being like, yep, according to the metrics we have to measure this, you are the best there is at this. But they don't talk about it, or it's not the topic of conversation. It's not what is there to happen. It was an interesting thing to experience, to be like, to sit around and see people and see these folks and all this shit and be like, this is wild that you're just like here hanging, and not in some like stargazing way, nothing like that, but just like, you know, it's the same thing. Like, there's no magic. It's you're there doing the thing that you're really good at, that you've earned through practice, dedication, commitment, some, you know, natural skill that you have fostered throughout time. And I'm getting, and you're just, that's just part of who you are. Yeah. It's not, you know, it's like we were talking about, it's not a character you're playing. We were having that discussion. I'm not watching you play a character. This is like who you are.
Yeah. That's a whole, like, watching characters unfold and not realize that they're playing a character. Maybe they do realize they're playing a character, man. I don't know. That was a fascinating discovery for me this week. So this week, walking around and listening to people speak jargon where it feels like they're a caricature of an impersonation, you know, it was really weird. And I think every time I come back from one of these events like Winter Strong, the Hard Reset, or any of these things where you get to like have moments, and then you're exposed back to like these boxes, is what I'll call them. It's very strange, man. It's really strange to go back to work or to engage with people who feel like they have to like pretend, or what it feels like.
It's like, am I in the? It kind of sometimes it's like, am I in the Truman Show right now? Like, is this? And again, this doesn't come from a place of like shittiness, but it's just like, man, like, what are we like? What's happening?
Yeah,
like, is this really how you want to talk? Is this really how you or is this are you playing out a script that somebody handed you this morning?
Yeah, that's what it feels like a lot of times, and I understand. I mean, like, you know, workplace ethics and just general life fit into the thing, but there's something about it that this week was very, very interesting. But what I've noticed is every time I come back from the hard reset, it feels like that for me. It's like, but I think it's also because, well, and what we're going to attempt to talk about it. But I think talking about the hard reset is extremely difficult.
Mm-hmm.
It's extremely difficult to get people to understand like what happens there, especially without giving everything away. But even if you do give it away, it just sounds like, oh, that's what you did.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're like, well, it's one of those things you got to be there, you know, you got to be there to understand. But
well, I think it's something on that to talk about, which I think is, you know, so at the end of that, so it's a 3-day retreat. Again, I'm not even going to do that. I'm not even going to go through like the itinerary because that's not the point. But at the end of it, the last night when we're all together, right, Matt asked that conversation, just basically being like to everybody in the room, like, is this what you thought it was going to be? Essentially, like, is this what you thought it was going to be? And I think the resounding answer from everybody was, not sure, but I know it's exactly what I needed, which I think is the sweet spot of what you want something like that to be. Like, I want you to be surprised. And I want you to be, it's like watching a movie, right? It's like watching a movie that surprises you in terms about, you know, like there's shit that I'm predisposed to like. That's a given, right? Like Adam Driver, laser guns, dinosaurs, spaceships, done. Like that requires very little buy-in for me to be like, I'll watch that. But you put something else in front of me that I'm like, I'm intrigued by this. And then I'm going to watch it. And then I'm going to be like, damn, whoa. Like that was, I'm not even sure that's not what I was expecting, but it hit on a level that was different.
What was the last time that happened to you? What was it?
A movie?
Anything. I know what it was, but I'm going to see if you catch it.
You know what mine is?
Yep.
Oh man. Now this jam, when people do this, it jams me up because I'm trying to think I don't know what.
The Last Full Measure.
Oh yeah. That's it. That's 100% it. Damn. That's 100% it.
Yeah. Because I didn't watch it. I watched you because I was like, oh, he's having a moment.
Yep.
I was like, oh, he's having a fucking moment right now.
That's 100% accurate.
Yeah. Because, I mean, I watched it. Don't get me wrong. I went back and watched it a couple of days ago. And it's breathtaking.
Mm-hmm.
2, knowing what I know about you and taking you to Winter Strong, that was just the entire part of the joy for me in Winter Strong this year was watching you do shit you never done. And then and the other part was like as that happened, watching your brain blow, just and I was like, you get it now.
Mm-hmm.
But that one specifically, and then especially after Glenn told his story and everything else, I can't say enough about it. So for everyone listening, stop what you're doing after the podcast and go watch The Last Full Measure on YouTube from Glenn Eberly and Eberly Stock. It's one of their forays into the media that they're doing, and it's fantastic. It's shot well, it's done well, it's a good story. And if you don't know anything about the outdoors, I think it's a good primer for like, oh, that's what this really is, not some shitty version of hunting that's been depicted or outdoorsmanship that's been depicted on silly movies or whatever.
Yeah.
And so
I came home. I got home that Monday, I think, whatever. And that night I sat down and watched it with my kids. Like literally that night, I had them watch it because I'm like, you need to watch this. And they're both like, what? Like, what are we like? You want us to watch a short film about hunting? Because again, that doesn't make sense coming out of my mouth. But they were like, all right. And after we got done watching, I was like, what do you think? And they were like, yeah, that was great. Like that was because it's the story within there and the everything about it. It was, and I watched it I mean, 11 and 8, so it's not necessarily 1-to-1, but I watched something else switch on with him. And as like Sophie, my oldest one, who's been super into cooking lately and super into all that kind of stuff. And we're talking like we've been just mainlining Master Chef lately because she's just so mad into it. And they had one on there the other night about game, like that was the protein or whatever, it was game. And she was like, I want to cook venison sometime. She's like, could we go hunt sometime and then cook that venison? And I was like, all right, sure. Yeah, I mean, we got to bag it. We got to bag it first. So that's a prerequisite part of that. That's the hard part. The cooking part, I know that looks like the hard part on the show, but we got to catch it first. But yeah, that idea about it being, I mean, that's so great. I love that you observed that because that's 100%. It's 100% accurate. Yeah. But watching that and sitting there and it was the environment too, right? Like that's another part about it. Like me sitting there, if you had like sent that to me and it was like, here, watch this. And I watched it on my phone or watched on YouTube on my TV or whatever, not the same. But being in that environment and watching that and just watching that all kind of soak in. Yeah, but it goes back to what we're talking about. I don't know. Like I'm sitting here trying to think like how to describe how that impacted me or how that hit me. And I really can't, other than just it being a thing where I was just like, oh, I got it now. And I think I even said that to you. I think I even said, oh, I got it now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that's the biggest thing is that you just said that. Like for somebody on the fence or somebody who doesn't understand and they wanted to understand, or they just wanted, maybe they don't even want to understand. They just want a glimpse into it. Here's a great glimpse into a thing that you don't get. And especially being immersed all weekend, right? It's very hard to come away with anything else. Right. Yeah. And so I think if anything is to come out of this conversation, it's one of those ones where it's like, imagine two groups of people are standing off and they're in two different corners and you've heard everything about that group and you've heard everything about that group. And you don't know what to really think, but you just got those predisposed thoughts. And then you enter into it and you're like, this is nothing what I thought it would be.
Right.
And I think it's just such a key, stark reminder for that. And so many, again, going back to niches, right? People's niches are so wildly different. People's environments or communities or whatever you want to call it are so wildly different. And people think that they understand because they can see it from the outside. And then you go and you get involved and you get in bed with it and you're like, holy shit, man, this is a different animal. Right. Somebody was trying to ask me about like, the health benefits of ice baths. Mm-hmm. I told him, I was like, I don't give a shit. Mm-hmm. I was like, I don't give a shit. So that for me, it's literally a challenge and it is a thing because the words I am in complete control have to mean something to me. Mm-hmm. That's it. Mm-hmm. And, so it's, for me, it's the same, right? Like I go, I venture, I learn. And then back to that thing of like thought mapping. Mm-hmm. My map, like, well, shit, your map had these roads and these cities on it, and one of those cities that did not exist, it's like fucking Shangri-La was hunting.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think about it all the time. I think about this concept of like the video game map, like the Red Dead map or any other video game that has like the parts of the map that are covered in clouds because you haven't unlocked them yet. I think about that all the time now. And I think about that in terms of what this shit looks like. And sometimes when I've played video games in the past, right, I've been like, I'm not going to fucking go over there. Like, that's not part of the main story of this. That's not part of the story of this game I'm playing. So I don't need to ride my horse over there just to fucking see what's over there because I'm interested in just playing the story. This is an old way of thinking, which is just like this game has a story mode and I'm going to play the story mode. And the story mode does not require me to take my hard left on my horse and go wander out in those mountains. And now, turns out that's kind of what I'm only interested in doing. And then I've figured out that if I can go do a bunch of that shit, then eventually we'll make our way back to the main story mode. But like, it ain't going anywhere. That's why it's there. Someone pre-wrote that shit out or someone has that as being the thing. And it's like, sometimes the fun shit, well, turns out most of the time the fun shit's out on the edges.
I mean, it turns out that maybe the main story is whatever you want it to be.
Right.
So, like, yeah. The conversation I had today was in reference to Todd's article about the men's hard reset. They were asking me about how I live, how you live, how Matt lives, and like just in general, and like why should they do something like that, or like is that real or whatever. And I was explaining to him, I was like, man, like I think people think I'm crazy. Not like I'm living some wild fashion. It's not that, but I think people like hear me and they hear how stoked I am and they think I'm nuts. Right. And even Todd even said this. Like Todd, like, you know, I've known Todd since we were kids, and like he was like, yo, like I thought you were nuts until I sat down with you. You know, like, we hadn't talked we hadn't seen each other in person for a while. And we had breakfast about a year ago. And he was like, I thought you were nuts until I sat down with you. And he was like, I realized you're on fire. Like you mean this shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then when the men's retreat came up, he started hitting me up about it. And then now, after going and exchanging text messages with him after the retreat, he's like, I get it now. It's not easy, but there's something to it.
You know what I think after hearing you say that? I think a thing about that makes it sound, that maybe makes it sound crazy, is because a lot of that shit that's involved in that, or this other stuff we talk about, is it's stuff that you have accessible to you for the most part, like right now. And I think that doesn't necessarily make sense to folks sometimes. Meaning that
I think
does that make sense? Do you know what I mean? Like it's stuff you can just do tomorrow. You don't have to order something. You don't have to wait for a package to come in. It's not this, that, and the other. It's just, it seems too simple sometimes.
We let shit happen to it. Life just happens to most of us. It just happens, and we're just like, yo, this thing happened to me today.
Yep.
Right. Instead of happening to life. And then people hear you say something like that. Like they hear you say something like that and they're like, oh, you're just like one of those like positive, like whatever people. And you're like, no, dude, like for real, like you can happen to life. Now, some of this shit, like you takes a minute to get to, right? Like imagine how had I thought about this at 18 when it was coming to finances or when it came to whatever. Then I can really fucking happen to life, right? Or it can really happen to life if I decide to never go down that route where I fucking shove Wendy's in my face for the next 10 years, right? And so, but regardless, we're here now and you have the power of choice, but people will just blow it off because it's hard, it's different, it doesn't fit, or right? Like it's the thing that we talked about, right? Like when you show up with the Tupperware at work,
right?
And people go, well, what, you going to get abs now?
Bet.
Maybe.
Maybe. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Like, what?
Yeah.
You know, or Brian, like, what, you going to go get rich now? Maybe.
It's the plan. It's the plan. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, man, you know, I'm so in on that idea about that happen to life thing, or happening to life. And I love that so much. And it's even that, right? Even some of the words that we use to try to quantify or try to describe this stuff, it's like, okay, well, so what's that mean? You figure that out for you. You figure out what your version of happening to life is. And that's the thing. I'm not saying you happening to life is the same way that I happen to life. That's you. No. You go find your version of what that is. And if that coincides with some of this stuff, then great. But I think there's also this thing of, I don't know if it's overcomplicating it, or when you're trying to find an entry point to it, finding things that make you think it's more complicated than it is. There's an example of this. I had somebody who I'm working with for nutrition stuff that hit me up and said, they shared with me a thing that somebody posted on Instagram that was this whole thing about, I should look it up, but whatever. It's like sweating, sore muscles, and a high heart rate are not a good indicator of a quality workout. All right. So this is what like a fitness person put on there. And they sent it to me, and they were like, this is a true story. This sounds like a bullshit thing when somebody was like, oh, you guys have been asking me to review these supplements. No, this is a true story though. I swear to God. Like, so she sent it to me and was like, what do you think about this? She's like, or what do you think is a good workout? And all I wrote back was, something that makes you feel good after you're done doing it. Like, that's it. Like, unless you're competitively training for something, or you have goals, you're trying to bodybuild, you're trying to do whatever, if you get done doing it and you're sweaty and you feel an endorphin rush and you feel whatever, you did it. But this idea about like having to, well, how do I progressively load sets and how do I do that? It's all well and good. And I'm not saying there's not a place for that. But if you're trying to sort it out and figure it out, start by doing any part of it. And if it makes you feel good, then you're on the path.
Yeah. I mean, that's, working in versus working out.
Right.
That Paul Chek idea. That's one. But man, I think people, they definitely overcomplicate things. I think part of that is because, I don't want to say failure, but there's this thing where it's like, well, where change, like it's like that second step to change is so daunting that we'd rather just like put little impediments in our way.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so you'll hear people, they'll be like, well, I'm going to work out, but I don't have a program. It's like, you don't even need a program right now. You just need to get off your fucking ass. Like, just, just go walk. Right. Mm-hmm. Just, and I can't say I don't understand, right? Because I've definitely done it, but I short circuit it. I've encountered it more, and this is wild, I think, when I hang around people who do it more. Mm-hmm. Like, the more people in my life who are like, this is a thing, the more I'm like, this is a thing.
This is a thing, sure. Yeah. This is what we just do. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I go, and then I have to like, like self, like get it together.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it's like the inverse of that is also true. If you're surrounded by, if you're surrounded by just this element of getting together with a group of people and just finding yourself bitching, complaining, whatever it is, then that just becomes what we do about
it's
stuff.
The norm.
Right. It's the norm. And that's what you know. And that's what you know is the norm. And then it's like, it's a thing, both Winter Strong and the Reset are great examples of this it's one of the first realizations I had when I, started to interject myself more in this new community of people we found, is the first time that we ever got together for one of the kind of meetup things. Nobody was complaining about shit, and not in a way that people don't have shit that bothers them or they have things in life that are frustrating or whatever it is. And I'm also very aware that it's a microcosm of 3 or 4 days. So I'm not an idiot. I realize that there's a lot more life that happens outside of that, but there's just something different when you realize that it's possible to spend time doing something other than being irritated about things. And that exists. But if that's what if what is going to the office and being pissed and being frustrated, rightfully so, probably, about things that piss you off and irritate you, then that's just like what happens.
Yeah. I mean, being able to control your environment and how you interact in your environment is a huge deal. And it's also no easy feat to be the different one. Mm-hmm. Right. But when given the choice between misery or perceived shittiness, I guess, right? Mm-hmm. Like just, and the other thing, I think it's the other piece, right? Is a lot of people are just comfortable enough to just continue on the trajectory they're on, right? Because I don't think a lot of the changes I made wouldn't have happened had I not been made uncomfortable, had I not been made to face reality, where I mask on, face off, right? Had to pull a Nicolas Cage. Had I not had that happen, man, like I probably would still be engaging in some of those same behaviors. But now, like when you recognize it, and somebody keeps telling you, yo, you have a choice. You're at the wheel. And you go, no, I'm not. And you go, no, you're at the wheel. And you go, no, I'm not. And then you start observing other people at the wheel. You're like, wait. There's something there. You know, a thing I heard today that kind of applies to this is most people are looking for the secret when it's actually just the 99% of shit that they want to ignore.
Mm.
Right? There's no one secret. There's just all the other things that you're just ignoring when somebody says like it's discipline, it's motivation, it's all of these little tiny pieces that are what add up to a life that make you stoked to live.
Yep.
Right. Like the discipline one. Like you get people who, especially more creative people who are like, they kind of shy away from discipline because they're like, well, what about my freedom and the things I'm supposed to be able to do on a whim and drop of a dime? And then I told you, like, I've been obsessed lately with that Kanye line. Said lock yourself in a room doing 5 beats a day for 3 summers. And it made me think about this thing with creative people or people who want to be creative. Maybe a better way to say it is because they want this freedom or whatever. But what you started to find out about like real musicians and real artists, their discipline's unmatched, but just in that arena. They probably haven't paid a fucking bill.
Well, right. Well, it's the same thing about why you know, I mean, not subject matter expert on this or whatever, but it's like people that have that same kind of dogged discipline for that also sometimes typically have some super gnarly substance abuse issues. Because like you have severe discipline in this thing, but in other things, sometimes it's like, well, I don't know, sure, what's this? I'll snort it. And then, it's.
I've been obsessed with it lately because the idea of talking to people and like coaching people and getting them to like understand like how much consistency and discipline and motivation like are entwined.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm very adamant and I get kind of irritated and at the internet world for their whole discipline over motivation thing. Like I get real, I don't, like, I'm like, no one's like, don't get me wrong. There are individuals who are extremely disciplined in everything we do. Like we have at least 2 friends that were like this, who like, if, you know, to steal from Jordan Peterson said, like, if they didn't have a real job, you could put them in the forest and they would just chop down trees because they had to, because they just don't know anything else but discipline and work. Right. But for most people, you don't find discipline without motivation. But I think we get wrapped up in the whole.
But you can't I don't think you can manifest discipline.
I don't think so either. And I think what the deal is though, like people confuse motivation. They confuse motivation for this thing where it's like,
right.
Instead of realizing that motivation is like, yo, I want this.
Right.
I want this. I want a 2,000 pound total. I want $1 million. I want to give my mom a home. I want, you know what I mean? These motivations, and if they run deep, all of a sudden you find discipline. Like it's not an accident, right? There's a reason why. There's a reason why people pay their taxes, right? The motivation has been provided to not take your ass to jail, right? Like there's a sufficient motivation to be like, I should probably
do that.
Yeah, I should do this, right? And so I don't know. I just constantly get caught up in it. And then even when I'll spoiler alert this one, but just this, like when we talked to Greg about it, and Greg was like, well, they live, you know, we live in a circle, man. The one doesn't happen without the other. And I thought that was probably even better. I thought it was better than my answer for sure, you know, because I don't think you get one without the other, which I think is obvious, but if you listen to these internet folks, they'll tell you like, you got to have discipline. And I'm like, how am I supposed to be disciplined for a thing I fucking hate that I don't understand that I've never done?
Yes. I mean, man, I'm a real big crusade with that shit at the moment. Like the idea of just like, I don't know, man, the idea of just like yelling at people on the internet about like, you just have to want it bad enough. Like I understand some of the root behind that of just, yeah, that's partially true, but the why is the most important part of that rather than the want. I think the why behind that, like, and it goes, we've discussed that before too. That idea about just consuming stuff that is like motivational based, that doesn't get the job done either. Like if I just sit there and I scroll through reels of just like videos of people in the gym fucking getting after it, that has a threshold point where like, that's just because I found another video where someone's like, rule number 1, you have to do like that. Like at some point, man, like, you know exactly what the fuck I'm talking about too. Like those are like, I get it and I'm aware of it, but I'm also like, man, like that at some point there's gotta be more. And I'm not saying you have to sit there but I'm not contradicting what I said before, because I'm not saying that you can't also just start with that also. If that's the thing that gets you fucking going and gets you moving, cool. But it's, I've had these conversations with people around food and talking about like hitting, like the classic thing about people trying to hit like protein macros or whatever, right? And it's like, sometimes, man, you just chug a protein shake because that's what needs to happen. Like, I don't know what else. I can't make it any more complicated than that. That if you want this to happen, then sometimes that's the answer.
You do what's required.
Yeah. That's what, yeah. Like, oh, I don't know if I can have one more protein shake. Yeah. All right. Well, then cook some meat. And like, here we are.
That's for me. I usually write it somewhere in my book and I'll put like, support your outcomes. Right. And it's the same thing. Same. It's do what's required, support your outcomes. Is this important enough to you? And I know that, and not in some like way, but like there's a reality about asking yourself a question about like, how important is this goal to you? Right. It's like, have you ever heard of Whoopi goals? You probably heard me talk about it before.
No, I thought for a second you were going to say Whoopi Goldberg, and I was like, yes, I know who Whoopi Goldberg is.
Yeah, we all know who Whoopi is.
No, I was like, no, I don't know.
So there's a method of goal setting called Whoopi, right? It's an acronym. I'm going to fuck it up, but we'll work through it, right? And so it's like wishing.
This is where we need a producer. Is that how that shit works?
Yeah,
it's like, hey, can you like just
look that shit up?
Yeah.
So like it's like wishing, hoping, obstacles, opportunity, identity, and execution, something like that. I forgot the P. The P is a plan. That's what it is. And so the real point, to short circuit this whole conversation, like the real point of this goal setting method, and the reason why I like it is because it will tell you if your plan costs you too much. Right? So if you come to me and say, Hante, I want to run a 3-hour marathon. And I tell you what that costs you. It's going to cost you 6 days a week. You're going to change the way you eat. You're going to change the way you drink. No more fucking off. You're going to be in bed this early. You're going to do 3 long runs a week. You're going to have 1 speed run a week and whatever. And you look at me and go, I don't have that kind of time. I go, okay, cool. Well, what about a 4-hour marathon? And you go, okay, well, now you're talking 3 runs a week. You're talking about, 1 long run, 1 speed run, 1 tempo run. And you're like, that's still a lot. I just want to finish it. You go, okay, 2 runs a week, 6 months, change the way you eat, the days that you run, and make sure you're hydrated. Okay, cool. Right. And that's kind of how Whoopi plays out as far as, whatever. And I think that's kind of the deal sometimes when you're talking about people and what they want and what they're asking for. They'll sit up here and they'll be like, I want a 6-pack. And you tell them what that costs. And they go, yeah, I want that. And then 3 weeks in, they're like, these mini Snickers really hit the spot.
Looking really good right now.
Yeah. Like, and first of all, what is it with every boss on the planet that, or his secretary or whatever, and they keep those mini Snickers? Fuck them. I'm so angry at you.
This just turns into a 45-minute fucking takedown of tiny Snickers, of just small candies. Fuck these.
How dare you?
Fuck you.
How dare you
Insult me. Insult me with these small ass candies. Yeah, I think so. So something for me personally, right, that I can speak to about that is like the triathlon thing. Is looking at that as in my own way that I was processing that down. So we had to. It was kind of came about through Alex, a dude who's in Not Dead Yet Life with us, and we were talking about doing this triathlon in July, and this conversation happened past October, and I was like, yeah, I'm fucking in, and I was all the way in for it and all that, and then as time crept up, it was me trying to run through this kind of system of like, has nothing to do with wanting it. Well, maybe it does. I don't know. I guess it probably does, but it came down to being like, what's the cost of this? What's the cost of this versus the other things that are happening right now? And it was running it through that filter about being like, I'm not willing to pay for this right now, if we're talking about it in terms of cost. And I'm completely at peace with that decision. And I feel very comfortable that it was the right decision that I made. Now looking at, 2 months past beyond that. But at that point, there is a certain thing where it's like, yo, man, like I really feel like a failure or I'm letting people down. And then that becomes a whole bigger thing than what it is mentally. But it's so different than the thing that in some of my Bruce Wayne shit that I do, SMART goals, right? Specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, time bound. So if you're trying to figure out if a goal is a goal you're going for, use one of those two and run it through it and figure out, does it hit these quadrants? And if it doesn't hit those, well, that's 4. However many is more than that. Does it hit these markers? But if it doesn't, that doesn't mean that it's bad. It just means, do you need to adjust something within it for you? And I do think an important disclaimer to come by for all this shit that I'm talking here now is I did not operate this way for a very long time. So this isn't coming from some place so the perspective that I could bring to it is fully owning, spent a long time not doing that at all. Mm-hmm. But realizing once I started, turns out there's something there. And there's something to all of it. So, I always feel compelled to identify that, not as some self-deprecating thing or whatever, or anything like that, but it's the idea that if anyone, if someone's listening to that and they think, well, it's just not that easy. Fucking got it. It's not. That's kind of the point. But once you realize that the achievement of that goal is something that appeals to you more than the Netflix selection screen, watch what happens. Watch the experiences you start to happen. Watch how much you start going and doing shit less and start experiencing things more. If that's what you're after.
Here's what I would ask, or like whatever. What about the people who do it and change it but don't experience? Because that happens too.
Like someone who does all that and then does the thing and then it doesn't hit them?
Yeah. My answer is that like it becomes quickly about the mountaintop for the people like that, right? Top of the mountain, and then you don't realize like what happened between the base camp and the top of the mountain, But
yeah,
it's like it's again, and I think too, like talking about like the story you tell yourself, like I have not a habit, but the perspective of making my story and my life romantic, right? Because it makes it better. Mm-hmm. But I also have the viewpoint of like, I'm very aware of the fact that like, the shit is coming.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have to bury someone. You're going to have a heartache and a heartbreak. You're going to have problems. And it's all fucking coming. You can't dodge it. Right? Even those of us with the most charmed life can't dodge whatever the thing is. So when you have these other moments, it's like, dude, grab on. Like, grab on tight. Because that's the thing, for me at least, that I've found that makes everything else, like, worth it. Right? You don't get, again, like I'll say it 1,000 times, agrodolce. You don't get sweet without the sour. You don't get it. It has to happen. It's part of the beauty of life. So when people are like, oh, you romanticize life and you shouldn't do that, I'm like, you're fucking Looney Tunes.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't know. It's just interesting to me. Like
well, there's a reason why there's a reason why you're drawn to there's a reason why, for entertainment purposes, right? You're drawn to a movie that has beautiful scenery and a beautiful story and a beautiful soundtrack and all that, rather than watching like a live stream of me doing the dishes. That's what's appealing to my eyeballs. I look at that and I'm like, I don't know what it is about that. I don't know what it is about when I'm watching The Revenant, but I'm watching that movie and I'm like, yeah, there's something to everything that's happening here. And I'm going to try and see if I can steal some of that or replicate some of that somehow. What a specific choice. I haven't watched that movie like maybe more than once since the one time I watched it. I don't know why my brain went right there. That was really weird. That was really specific. I don't know why. Like, I like a lot of movies and I could have gone a lot of places. I've seen that movie once. It's fine. I don't think Leonardo DiCaprio is going to listen to this. So I think we're good.
Overrated movie.
Yeah, I know. That's what I mean. I immediately as I said it, I wanted to pick a different movie because I'm like, that's not Last of the Mohicans. There. That's what I should have said. That's what that's what I should have said. Cut that out and replace it after you look up what whoopee goals are. Talking to a producer that doesn't exist. Can you cut that?
Mark that down.
Mark that down. Mark it. Timestamp 5708.
Yeah, man. I don't know. Like, yeah.
Well, that's what this all is, right? That's it's kind of what we set out to do, at least in having this conversation about experiences. And I think we, as it tends to go, found our way through the woods to it. It's kind of the whole point is you can't, in an hour-long conversation, encapsulate what the appeal is of it. But this is what I would tell someone who's curious is go find out.
Well, no, I think you can encapsulate it, man. I think you can encapsulate it a couple ways, right? And I think one is backwards. And for me, a lot of things work backwards, but and work through the lens of death. But like, I'll say it here, even though I said it at the men's retreat. I try to say it, reserve it for special times. But like, when you're on your deathbed, or you're in your final hours or your final weeks or whatever, I don't want to look at my life and be like, fuck, there needs to be more.
Mm-hmm.
Right? If I'm blessed or lucky enough to make it to whatever old age is, right? For me, it's 2,027 weeks left, right? That's my idea at a minimum. If I'm blessed to make it to that time frame, I don't want to be like, I need 6 more weeks. I want to be like, what a run.
Mm-hmm.
And then I want to be able to just hang out and sit around with my kids, my lady, hopefully grandkids at that point in time, like whatever it is. And I want to be able to reflect, to look at pictures and be like, and then when it's over, not that I have any control over when it's over, but I'll maintain this forever. I want to lead the kind of life, not that someone makes a movie about. Fuck that. I want the kind of life that when somebody comes to the funeral or they say like, oh, you knew this guy, And they're like, what was he like? And you're like, buddy, grab a drink or whatever it is, you know? And I think through that lens, if you look at life through that lens, it's like, well, how do I get there? Right. And it's one of those things that we forget, or like you can get sidetracked. It's one of the like conversation I'm having with my oldest boy right now, man. It's easy to get sidetracked chasing women. It's easy to get sidetracked chasing fake parties, right? Not the real. We don't need. You're chasing that party you saw on fucking TV, and not the party that you should be chasing, which is in a foreign country doing things that you never done that you should be doing anyways, or whatever. And so, I think that's one of the ways you sell it. You sell it like that, right? Like, this is why you chase moments. You chase moments because of all those things. And I think we know that, but what starts to happen is that, and which is one of the reasons why I love The Alchemist, right? It's like, what happens is those voices start creeping in and they start saying, it's not possible. Mm-hmm. You can't do that. No one in your family's ever done that. What the fuck makes you think you're going to, or whatever it could be, right? Like, no one does that. No one starts a podcast. Mm-hmm. You know, no, like, who starts a podcast and nobody asked for? like,
yeah. All you gotta do is get a producer.
Yeah.
And then they just make it happen for you.
Yeah. At 1 hour, mark that down. But you know what I mean? I think there is a way to encapsulate it, but sometimes we'll get caught up. And then here's the other thing, like, it's that idea of magic, right? Mm-hmm. It's so wild and crazy looking and whatever. And then you see behind the magic trick and you're like, that's it? Mm-hmm. That's fucking it? And then you get, like, as far as I'm concerned, 2 choices. Maybe there's more, but like, you get 2 choices. You get to go, fuck magic. Mm-hmm. Or you can go, ooh, I can make magic now?
I can make magic, yeah. And both are correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, whichever way you want to go. For real. Because you can either look at, I mean, that's the way I love magic. Like, I remember going to see David Copperfield when I was 10 years old at the Toledo amphitheater thing and being like, that's the greatest shit I've ever seen. And there's other people who are like, magic's fucking stupid. And I'm like, well, you know, I mean, you're not wrong. Like, it's just trickery.
We have a dude named Justin Way when I was still in the Army, and he used to perform magic tricks. Mm-hmm. Blew my mind. He'd be in there like,
yep.
I mean, he was good. And
if a dude walked over here right now and he had like 3 little red rubber balls in his hand and a deck of cards, I'd be like, I gotta go. I'm like, there's about to be some shit over here that I don't have time for whatever you want to talk about. Yeah, but I love it. But maybe that's it though, right? Maybe that's it, is that I can simultaneously be fascinated by it and also know that it's not real. Maybe that's the sauce.
Some of that is like, it's like, I think this is changing for that community now, but for powerlifting, that's part of what powerlifting has been for years, right? Mm-hmm. I think at least it's a group of guys who knew that no one gives a shit about this but us. Mm-hmm. But that's why it's cool.
Yeah.
Right. And I think the sooner you can kind of come to grips with that, and maybe that's that's a whole nother like external, internal deal, right? Like, but once you kind of come to grips with the fact that like, oh, no one gives a shit.
Nobody gives a shit. Yeah.
And it's like, oh, so I get to give a shit about whatever way this goes. And even going as far as to be like, if the Netflix selection screen really is the thing that gets you jazzed up, so be it. Mm-hmm. Right. But like, if you know, like deep down, you want something else and you realize like, oh, I'm in control. I'm at the wheel. And the moments I want to collect don't happen at that selection screen. And like, I got a choice. I have the ability to do this. And sometimes that ability isn't instant, which I think is the other part with people. Cause I mean, even me, like, right. Like I remember wanting to change, like after everything crumbled and fell apart. Or I should say after I destroyed everything, say it properly.
Impeccable with your word.
Yeah, exactly. Is I remember wanting to change, and I remember wanting like to just be like, can we just get there already? Can I just not feel this way?
Mm-hmm.
Can I just not have the thought like, ooh, here we go. Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. I remember watching that movie thinking like, who's going to invent this? Because I need it. I need to not remember. I need to be able, or I need to be able to.
Yeah. Total recall yourself.
Yeah. Just time jump. So yeah, man, I think that there is a way to, that's the way to encapsulate it.
Well, and I think however it gets there too, because I would even say like, my entry into powerlifting was because it was right when COVID hit and I realized I didn't have anything else to do. Like everything, everything that had been, everything that was something else that I found joy in, I realized, oh, this isn't going to be able to happen for a minute. I'm not going to go to my job and see people there that fulfill me, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so outside of the things that I know fulfill me that I have right here, family, what are we left with? And it was a choice about being like, it's got to be something more than me playing video games.
Yeah.
And that's as simple as it was. It wasn't because I was like, this is it. Like, now's where change happens. It was a thing where it was like, you need something new to do. And it was a forced thing. I mean, I've talked about that before. It's a weird conversation when talking about that time period. I'm not sitting here talking to you if that whole wasn't a thing that was a part of our history of human beings now, the pandemic, right? I'm not sitting here talking to you with that because that's the only reason that happened, is because I was forced to be like, oh, you're going to not be able to fill your time with other things that distracted you from dealing with your own shit. And
that's the one.
Yeah. And that was it. And it was like, cool. And I saw that as a vessel about being like, okay, it's not like, in some weird way, it was like, okay, this is a thing that I can start doing that's going to give me an hour to an hour and a half of time to myself listening to music that I enjoy while also theoretically making me feel better about myself physically. That's why it started.
Yeah.
Because it was like, this is what it is. Shit. Here it is.
Yeah. I don't know, dude. I think that's dope. I think it's dope, and there's a lot. Sam really hooked me up at the men's retreat when he brought up the grand gestures thing.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I had never had a way to couch that idea, but that's what that is, right?
Yep.
We're not looking for a grand gesture. We're looking for little rocks that help build a wall.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you don't even know you're building the wall. You just got rocks. You're just like, all right, cool. So and as you said today, how things start, isn't how they always end. So
yeah. Or continuously blows my mind, and it continuously blows my mind how it, there's a lot to be said also for momentum, in a lot of ways, and what momentum builds in all facets, and whatever the start of that is. It's like I've seen. It's one of my favorite parts about this shit is seeing people who we've got to know and watching. I mean, through that horse has been pulped to death, but it's, using social media as a tool to be able to watch people do neat shit. It's seeing people who I've seen recently start to get after and do shit, going out and going on walks and posting shit about going out and walking every day or whatever it is. That little shit fires me up, right? From people that I've seen have an interest in wellness or health or whatever. And knowing that you're going out and doing that, and knowing also that you're putting it out there, is one of my favorite parts also.
Yeah.
That you're sharing this thing you're doing. not because you're in search of someone being like, good job, but just like, hey, like I'm doing a thing, and momentum begets momentum.
Yeah. I think the last thing for me, man, is just it's probably purpose, but I say that hesitantly, right? I say that hesitantly, but I think purpose is such a big deal. I think we give it a bad rap sometimes because we want it to be this. We want it to be this grand gesture.
Mm-hmm.
We want it to be this humongous thing, and then sometimes it's like your purpose right now just needs to be like. So, for example, with my oldest boy right now, I told him, I was like, my idea for you, King for a day, I'm helping you control your life, is to just sharpen the sword. That is your entire job for like the next 6 years. Your job is to make all your skill sets as good as possible, make yourself as the best man you can possibly be. That's it. Right? And I think that that's the idea.
Mm-hmm. So I'll piggyback on that, even just because we're talking about kiddos, is what I've come to realize, at least for right now, my purpose with my two is that if they say they're interested in trying something, if it's within my means to make that happen, sure, let's go try that. Yeah. Whatever it is. You want to try making steak tacos by yourself? Bet. We can go to the store and we can buy steak and we can buy tortillas and whatever. You want to do, yeah.
How many adults don't do that though?
Right. Yeah. You can just try making steak tacos. Like you can just
do stuff.
You can just do stuff. Seriously. I mean, we've joked about that for a while. Like you just do stuff. Like no one, like you can just go do. You can just go do. You can just go do stuff.
Just go do stuff.
Like, that's it. Next episode is just going to be an hour of us just doing that in different tones of voice. You can just go do stuff. You can just do stuff.
Yeah, you can just do stuff. It's kind of like we should do the spicy sweet chili Dorito review.
Hey guys, back again. Yeah, that's it. You can just review. You can just have a Doritos review channel and only review spicy sweet chili Doritos all the time. No one can stop you.
Episode 738. We're back for the spicy sweet chili review.
What's up, guys?
I love these Doritos.
They're so good. All right. Be back next week. Put down in the comments what kind of Doritos you want us to review. I don't know if we'll get to them. But yeah. You can just do shit.
We'll read your comments.
We'll read your comments. We're just doing sweet, spicy chili Doritos. Yeah,
that's it. Every time, every week.
That's it. Yeah, I think that's it. That's it, man. I think that's it, though. I think that's the thesis statement of this one is whether it's going to the middle of the woods in South Carolina and doing God knows what that you've never done before for a couple of days, whether it's going to St. Louis and sitting in a cold bath and doing breath work until you cry and have incredible feelings about all of these things. You can just go do those things and they're available to you. And if you need assistance, then seek yourself out a Sherpa.
They're everywhere.
Yep.
They are everywhere. This entire time we've been talking, one of the other things I've been constantly thinking about, and it's been kind of coming up over the past 6 months for me, is the idea of adventure and where do people go today to find adventure? Right? Like, not saying that it has to be an uncharted adventure, but even that, like, there's not much left, right? Mm-hmm. And so I don't know why, man, but I think about this all the time. I'll read it real quick. So, and this is the greatest ad of all time as far as I'm concerned. This is the greatest piece of marketing ever.
Is it about Doritos?
Spicy sweet chili. The only Doritos that matter.
See you guys next week.
Spicy nachos. Get out of here. It's Men wanted for hazardous journey, small wages, bitter cold, long months of complete darkness, constant danger, safe return doubtful, honor and recognition in case of success. Ernest Shackleton.
It's from Endurance, right?
Captain of the Endurance.
Yeah.
Fucking the greatest ad of all time, man.
Yep.
But I say all that, I brought that up just because we were talking about just doing things and finding purpose or, these moments in life. Imagine reading that ad and being like,
sign me up.
Mm-hmm. Right? Now imagine that ad's never produced and it's 2023. Or the ad is produced, but it's 2023. And somebody just invites you on a fucking walk this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the catalyst for change doesn't have to be a lot.
Mm-hmm.
You can do something today to get on the path. Mm-hmm. And I think that's right. That small walk can be just a regular walk, or it could be an adventure.
Mm-hmm. I'm no longer as concerned as I used to be with itineraries. Used to be a thing that really mattered to me. What are we going to do? What time's it happening? What do I need to pack? What do I need to bring? What is required for this? You told me before Winter Strong, you're like, look, man, you might just end up wearing the same pair of pants 3 days in a row. And I was like, this dude don't know what he's talking about. I packed 19 pairs of pants. And I wore the same pair of pants, Yeah. And that's the point. Cause I'm like, I need to be prepared. Yeah, it's going to be fine. Wear the same fucking pants.
I mean, dude, there's definitely something to be said about being prepared, right? I'm all about it. But there's also something about just being down for an adventure. And like you said, like, I don't need your itinerary. I'm not going to die, right? And let's just go forward and figure this out.
And what I would say to that is, right, and what I would say to that is, the thing that makes the difference for me, which is what I think a lot of this resonates back to, is not that you have to do it with someone, but who you're doing it with. And who is a part of the community that, because that's because of you. That's because if you told me right now, I'm not telling you what we're doing, drive down to my house and we're going to be gone for 4 days. I'm like, all right.
Yeah. I mean, that goes back to the thing we always talk about though, right? That's the curation of your life.
Right.
Like, right. Have I put people in my life now that when things like that come up, I'm like, oh yeah, for sure. Of course I'm in. Right. Versus like when somebody else, when Stan calls and you're like, oh,
yeah.
This is going to be a night of me babysitting a drunk person.
Right.
Or, when, insert fictional character, and is this now going to be one of these things that I'm going to dread for whatever, versus like, yo, we're going here. I don't know what we're doing, but it's not going to be boring.
Yeah.
Or even if like, dude, like I could use a night around a campfire right now doing nothing. Right. Instead of whatever shenanigans people are up to. Maybe I want to talk about the cosmos and like, how the funeral industry is a sham.
Yeah. And now I know. Now I have more data. And now next time, I'm only going to pack one pair of pants, so I have more room in my suitcase to bring home some of that leftover birthday cake.
I should still be eating birthday cake at this exact moment. Being in this cut. This might be the hardest cut I've ever done. Not like physically hard, but like my taste buds are a mess after the summer I had.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. So
sure.
I would love to eat all the if we had that sheet of carrot cake right now, I would look like a 3-year-old because I would just plant my whole face in it. That's what they just face first, or maybe just go with the scoop, the hand scoop.
Just the hand.
Yeah, fucking 4 fingers. Like
that was the best part. That was the best part that's representative of the whole Winter Strong thing is that we were in front of a whole giant cake, and I was going to get everybody a piece, and I guarantee you, I was the only fucking person there that did not own a knife. So I just used the handle of a plastic spoon because I'm like, man, I was thinking about that. I was like, man, there are so many people here that have knives, and I don't own a knife.
I had several.
Yeah, I know. Seemed like in the moment, though, the spoon got the job done.
Yeah, it
but
did.
That's what it is.
It's all
more
that
experiences. That's right, and more coming.
I've got a couple questions from the interwebs. We'll hit real quick. Where do you go? All right. Oh wow. Thoughts on the Japanese concept of ikigai? You know what this is?
I don't.
All right. This is, again, we need a fucking producer. Where's the producer at?
Oh, you need to look it up too?
He's fired.
Yeah.
I've seen it before, but I don't remember. I want to make sure I get it right. Because there's a little Venn diagram for it.
This is why I told my kids I couldn't go on MasterChef, because I'm like, I know a lot, but there's some things they put in front of me that I couldn't handle. You throw some squid in front of me.
So ikigai is this like concept where they talk about the things that you're supposed to have, right? So like passion, mission, profession, vocation, and it comes together in the center. So the Venn diagram of all of those. So it's like what you love, what the world needs, what you can be paid for, what you're good at. And then it kind of intersects with passion, mission, vocation, profession. And then in the center, that would be your ikigai, I guess.
Okay.
And so, yeah.
I think, okay.
Also on the Japanese concept of ikigai.
So I think that's the kind of thing that it goes back to your idea about like, you didn't necessarily phrase it this way, but like reverse engineering something, meaning that I think if you spend time trying to find a thing that's all of those things, I don't know if it's going to happen. I think if you explore different pieces of those, then it starts to almost kind of like a planet alignment. That it happens on its own time. And I obviously don't know enough about it to know if that's what the concept is. But I think if you think, okay, I need to find, it's like purpose. If I need to find a thing that hits in the dead center of that Venn diagram, then I think that's a stressful, challenging, not maybe best use of time and energy. Versus if you spend time exploring one or two of those, then there'll be pieces of the others that come out that allow that thing to find. And I would say, speaking from experience, because that's what's happening in my life right now. Yeah. I didn't seek out, this life chose me. I didn't choose, but this wasn't ever the fucking plan. Yeah. Right? Like, never was this the plan. But through a series of fortunate events, here we are.
Lemony Snickets.
Right. It's through a series of snickets.
Yeah, now we're here. Yeah. I don't disagree. I think it's a very hard pursuit. I think it's a worthwhile pursuit. I think when you're thinking of it like that, like trying to make that thing which you love, the thing that pays you, there's a very big question in there, and that's, are you okay with being paid not a lot because you're doing a thing you love? And I think that's also okay, because there's also this thing about living below your means. And that's very real. But I think that's kind of like the crux.
Yeah, Matt said that to me once way early on when talking about stuff, is that if you in terms of that, if you think you're interested in doing something, then start by doing it for free and then see how it feels. So start by giving it away and then see how that feels.
I think it's for me, it's like, at least for creative things, it's like, I'm going to do this anyways. I'm going to do it anyways. So why wouldn't I do it here? And then the market, will do what it wants to with it.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about that extensively. I thoroughly enjoy making 15-second like music videos.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do that. Is for me. That is that is for me, because that's me living out my dreams of watching TRL and being like, I could make that free kind of video.
I was just getting ready to go, like, how much of that is fucking MTV for you?
Yeah, it's me watching TRL every day after school, being like, oh yeah, I can make an Eminem music video like that.
Yeah.
Like if I just had the tools. Well, turns out
I knew that's what you were gonna say, because I was like, dude, I was like, we're from the fucking music video generation.
Oh yeah, and there's something special to that. There's something special about that connection with that, and I respect the shit out of people that are still making music videos these days, and some of them are fucking great.
I mean, dude, like I remember
the Tyler video that I was like that one is so something that I was obsessed with for like a week.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, of them in the studio. That like I hadn't watched that in a minute. And then you sent that to me, and I watched that shit on a loop for probably like 5 days straight, because I was just like everything that was a what did you see thing, and I was just like I was just enamored by it.
That's been a pre-gym ritual song for a while now.
I mean, yeah, got it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's it, man. You it's one of those things like you chase and you should chase. It's that the Nietzsche quote I've been thinking about a lot. What is it? It's I know of no better life pursuit. No, I know of no better life purpose than to perish in attempting the great and impossible.
Yep.
I know of no better life purpose than to perish in attempting the great and impossible. I fucking love that. It's so good. Mm-hmm. So yeah, for me, that's what that is. All right. I got 2 more, I think, maybe 3. Who knows?
What about Doritos?
I mean, there's no question. No.
Somebody better, next time we do this, somebody better front load this shit with Doritos questions.
Yeah. Spicy sweet chili.
Brian.
Right now. Yeah. Where's Brian when we need him? I've been dieting with no results. Any good tips or things I should know? Wow. I'll let the professional go first, and then I'll go after.
I mean, the simple answer is part of that is because I think because you're dieting, and I don't know, not to zero two in on that term, but that's not what you need to do. Is you don't need a diet. I haven't dieted once over the past 3 years. I've found a caloric deficit that worked for me and numbers that help me accomplish the goals I want to do, and then I do that over and over again. So there's never once been a point where I've been like, oh, this is my diet now, or this is I'm dieting. So it's the idea about, I don't know. That's it.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that shittily.
No,
I just mean,
I think it was perfect. It was well said, man. I'm going to say what gets measured gets managed. Mm-hmm. Number 1. Make sure you have a good understanding of fat and where they come from, especially if you eat out a lot.
Dude, so I tell absolutely everybody is that if you're like fat's a sneaky fucker, that's the biggest realization I've seen from people who I work with is people who start tracking shit and paying attention to that stuff is how fast fat sneaks into your diet.
Yep.
It is a ninja.
It's we're real good at identifying carbs, and we're real good at identifying protein.
Yep.
That's that fat.
Yep. Sneaky.
So I'd say those 2, and then the one I tell everybody is instead of taking away, add. So if you're add and prioritize, right? So when you sit down to have a meal, basically you're going to have a pre-meal before your meal. Mm-hmm. So have a couple blueberries. Have a cup or 2 cups of blueberries, whatever it is. Like 2 cups is a lot, but whatever. Have a couple blueberries, and then when I say prioritize your plate. So eat your protein first after you eat your couple blueberries. Eat your protein first, your carbs, and your fats. Mm-hmm. And I think if you can kind of manage that, instead of just going straight with the subtraction mode, right? Because the idea is if you eat a couple blueberries, then you should fucking at some point in time, like we're looking for satiation, right? And it doesn't have to be blueberries; it's just an example. So that's one of my answers is always add more healthy stuff up front, so that way when it gets to the hot garbage, maybe you're full because that's a whole nother thing.
Yeah, in terms of
go ahead.
No. Go ahead.
Have you ever heard about the potato diet?
No, but I'm in. Oh, is that
So it's actually not a diet. It's actually done to reset your taste buds.
Okay.
Because, the food industry, they have food scientists, I think they're called.
Sure.
They're designed just to make food delicious as fuck, right?
Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. We were just watching it last night. Yeah.
That's the whole purpose, is to make food just delicious.
Mm-hmm.
And so the idea is you eat as many potatoes as you want, but nothing can be on the potato.
Just a plain potato.
Just a plain potato. And this is what you eat for the next 14 days. How many potatoes do you house down the first meal?
A lot.
Yeah?
A lot, probably.
No salt, no butter, no nothing.
Oh. Like I can't even season them.
It's just a potato.
Oh.
You can cook it.
I'm out then. I mean, I'm not out, but I mean, probably not as many as I think until I get to the point where I'm just like, I just need something.
Okay. Have you ever had like plain food like that? Like not apples and oranges, but like a plain just meat or vegetable or something. No seasoning.
I mean, maybe in a way where someone thought they seasoned it, but it wasn't very good.
I'm not doing it.
Yeah. But probably not in a way intentionally, no. But
okay,
yeah.
But have you ever felt that wretch feeling of just eating normal food? That's not bad.
Yeah.
So that's the point of the diet right there.
Sure.
Is that your taste buds hit a natural point of like, fuck this, we're out.
Yeah.
Right. Your saliva glands stop. Everything is like, we've had enough. You've given us enough.
You've done it.
Yeah. You've done.
We're over your bullshit.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
But think about this, right? So that's what happens when you eat a potato, right? You boil a potato and you eat it and there's no seasoning on it. By meal 2 or 3, you're probably just like,
yeah, I'm here for this. Now, maybe I want to do it just for a day. I might just do it just for a day.
But now imagine if you have salt.
Yeah, no, that's what I thought of initially. Like, I'm just like, okay, now we're talking. No.
Think about this. You could probably only house like 1 or 2 potatoes, right? Like big potatoes.
Yeah.
Right. How many bags of chips, if you had to, could you just
unlimited
mow down?
Unlimited. Final boss status. Like there is no. I am full. Unlimited power. They're just full. The emperor. Yeah. No. There'd be no stopping me.
Behind it is like you're just trying to reset your taste buds because everything on this planet is designed, especially on the, as they say, on the inside of the grocery aisles.
Right.
And they make you just smash food like Pop-Tarts.
I'm tempted to do this just for a day though now, just to see just what it's like to just eat potato. All right.
No note.
Yeah.
I want a full vlog style.
All right.
Yeah, video.
All right, I'll do this. I'll just boil a shit ton of potatoes and see how long it takes me to just be like, fuck this.
I just want to see you and Izzy just mowing potatoes down. Just hating life.
Just prison style. Just, all right, I'm writing down potatoes.
Yeah. So anyways,
okay.
And that would be the other answer is like, just check what you're eating, man. If you're eating hyper palatable food, it's real easy to go over, right?
Yeah.
Like my devil is peanut butter because I sure will lick that spoon like that.
Little extra, little one for you, one for me.
But I'm gonna be honest here. It's not even extra. It's a spoon.
Mm-hmm.
It's a giant spoon.
Well, especially if you're making like this morning, I was making a smoothie and I knocked it off into the thing, and I was like, "Well, what am I going to do with this on the spoon? I'm not going to wipe it off and throw it away. I'm not an idiot."
That's what a sensible person does. What I do is I just take the stuff and the stuff I measure, and that's there. and then it goes a little scoop, a little extra.
Oh, a little bonus, a little
bonus round.
little jelly of the month club for you.
Yeah. So we just don't even. I don't even have peanut butter right now. If I do, it's got to be rationed out to me. But yeah,
and I guess the other thing about that, again, I feel like I was kind of dismissive about my answer at first, in a way that me come across that way. I think if you're to whatever your diet is, or whatever that may mean to somebody, if you're not into tracking, or if that's not something you're into, what I would encourage people to do, or what I encourage someone to do, is eat how you want to eat. Track it though to see what's coming in. So I'm not even saying, even if you're not messing with macros, if you're just at a point where you just like, I want to see, like, I feel like I'm eating it and I feel like this is whatever, track it, eat how you want, but track it for a week to see what am I eating when I'm hungry? And then how does the math shake out?
I'm going to go further and say, track everything. I know we say everything.
Oh yeah.
Unsize Snickers, track them. All those
pre-workout, track it.
All those things is so many people I've seen track, and then like I was talking about earlier today, they walk by their boss's office and they smash 3 of those Airheads. Yeah. Like, oh, that was nothing.
Yep.
Or they keep a bag of candy in their console and they just smash it, and they're like, what happened?
Right.
So, yeah.
And that's where I think it gets into those fine details where if you're talking about like large scale weight loss, that's one thing. But if you're getting into the point of like the minutia, the details of stuff, like that stuff matters. If you're whatever it is, if you're having BCAAs, if you're having pre-workout, if you have pre-workout, if you drink BCAAs, and if you have one sugar-free energy drink a day, that's probably 20 carbs that, if you're not accounting for them, will make a difference.
Yeah.
In what you're trying to do.
Yeah, 100%. And this is what I'll say too for the non-tracking people. Everybody tracks food, and I stole this from Michael Easter.
That's great.
But, yeah. Everybody tracks food. 1 plate, 1 slice, 1 sandwich. You're tracking. So now we're just asking you to track and be a bit more specific, because science, in the name of science, right? It's
right.
You're now a scientist. You're now trying to science your body. So just track your food, and don't make it weird. All right. Last question. Because the other one's not a question. It says, well, we'll talk about both, really. All right. So the other one's not a question. It goes literally mentor-mentee relationship. So you can do what you want with it. It says mentor-mentee relationship.
What's that mean? What's that look like?
You can do whatever you want. This person didn't ask a question.
Mentor-mentee relationship. I think it's something that changes over time. I think it can be something that changes to. I think that if you are a, I was gonna say good. I don't know if like that's I like that word, but if you're a quality mentor, then the person that you're menteeing, is that a thing? Is that a thing? I'm just yeah. This is what you're saying. Exactly what I'm saying. Is it
do my hands right now?
Yeah. It equalizes. I think if you're a good mentor, is this what you were doing?
No, this is Ricky Bobby.
You were literally just doing that. So what I was going to say is, I think if your mentor should raise you to them, and they should raise you to the point of having you be an equal to them. And that's the sign of a quality mentor, is somebody that is who is interested in elevating you to be with them in that pursuit of that thing, if that's a shared interest.
Yeah.
That's my answer to that.
I think mentor-mentee relationship. I mean, I have nothing against what you said. I mean, I think your goal as a mentor, your goal as a leader, your goal in any of those things is to win. I want to help you win, whatever your win is, right? I know some people don't like that word, but like in this kind of context, they don't like that word. But whatever your personal win is, I think that's your goal, is to get that person to there. And I think the other thing is to maybe be able to get that person to the point where you're like, you're useless, right?
100%. Work yourself out of a job.
Well, not just work yourself out of a job, right? And so, like, if I'm moving from level 1 to level 3, right, there comes a time where maybe I'm not a level 4 guy. Right? And so this is saying the same thing as you were saying, but kind of expounded on it just a bit. Like, maybe I'm a level 3 guy. So, like, I can take you from 1 to 3. That's what I do. And as soon as I get to 3, it's to not be so in my bag about who and what I am that I can now be like, yo, you got to go see this dude. Right? It's like, you ever seen Game of Death?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. So it's like the pagoda on Game of Death. It's like, you got to go up one level and fight the new boss now. Instead of fighting him, he's going to mentor you to the next level.
Yeah, it's a level of recognizing when you don't have what somebody needs. So it reminds me also of a conversation we were having at the retreat about somebody brought up, or somehow the conversation was, what's the difference between, was it confidence and arrogance?
Yeah, confidence and arrogance, yes.
Right, and my thing with that is somebody who is confident isn't afraid to share. Isn't afraid to share knowledge, isn't afraid to share resources, isn't afraid to share the fact when they don't know what you're asking. That's the difference. And I think that's the separation of that. Meaning that if I'm arrogant, then I think, it's a shit I've bagged on for a while, which is if I'm arrogant, then that's me being like, you need to come to me for the answers.
Yeah.
I'm the kind of person it's the kind of person who tells people you've been doing this wrong your whole life.
Yeah.
Fuck that. Like, no, like that's not what that is. That's you trying to be the expert TM, which makes someone think that like you must have me for the answers. Yeah. Versus me being like, if you ask me something I don't know, I'll be like, I don't fucking know. I hope you figure it out. Or here, go talk to Hance. He might know that. Or talk to whoever. But that's, I think, if that's part of that question is, what makes a good mentor or whatever, it's someone who knows what they don't know.
I like it. Mine is much the same, but then I'll add that I think the difference here is very subtle, right? It's subtle, but it's not, and so I don't know the word for that. But anyways, I don't know the nuance for that. But the way I'll talk about it is, if somebody asks me, "Am I strong?" or they ask you if you're strong, you can say yes, I am, right? Versus walking into a room and being like, "Everybody,
100%,
I'm strong."
Right.
Instead of screaming to everybody, "I'm strong," or even more so is I walk into the room and I'm strong.
Right.
I don't have to say it. I don't have to, but if I'm asked, I have enough wherewithal and stature to say, yeah, I'm strong, and not apologize for it, not make bones about it or anything else. But yeah, I'm pretty strong. And then just leave it at that. I think that's the difference. For me, that's a big portion of confidence. It's a big portion of fuck humble. So,
yep.
Yeah.
Agreed.
And last question, we're going to land this plane. What an appropriate question. How do you want to be remembered when you're gone?
Man.
What a journal prompt.
I want to be remembered as the person who is the person who's willing. I'm trying not to make it about other people, because that's what I was tempted to do. Because I was tempted to say my initial gut answer was, I want to be remembered as the person that helped other people try whatever they wanted to try. Whatever that means, whether that means work on themselves in whatever capacity that is, try new experiences, do new things. But that's a cop-out answer, because that's a me thing about making it about somebody else. I want to be remembered as somebody who, as long as it took me to get there, stopped being afraid. I lived a really long time being afraid, and I don't even really know of what. But I spent a really long time being afraid of just a lot of things. And if you said, well, what are those things? I don't even think I could probably quantify them for you. But I know a lot of the decisions I made, shitty decisions, hurtful decisions, decisions of inaction, were because I was afraid. And I want to be someone who someone can see, oh, he stopped doing that. Or he tried to do that a little less.
I like that. I can identify with that part. Mm-hmm. I can identify with the fear part, man. Like, I spent the greater portion of my life running towards fear because of that. Because of probably the exact same thing. We just had different responses. Mm-hmm. Like, I purposely did things because I was afraid. Mm-hmm. I was like, oh, well, I don't want to get my ass whooped, so I should probably learn how to fight. I was terrified of getting my ass whooped, or I was terrified of whatever, or, so.
And my version of that is, I'm afraid of being alone, so I'll regularly pick up the $200 bar tab while everybody's out because this makes you want to hang out with me. Right? Because I'm the fun guy.
Yeah.
I'm the fun guy who makes fun happen.
Yeah.
Through that vessel.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I get that.
What about you? You answer that question.
How do I want to be remembered? Man, with a lot of commas.
Mm-hmm.
With a lot of commas.
Oh, that's good.
I want to be a good dad. I want to be a good lover. I think one of the biggest regrets I will have in my life, and it's not a regret, but it's a thing. I've told you about this, is the whole HUD from Secondhand Lions. Mm-hmm. The fact when he was like, I've loved one woman for my entire life. That whole line like hit me like a ton of bricks. I was like, fuck. Mm-hmm. Right. To go further on that one, on my things to do before I die list that I wrote when I was like 22, right? That's one of the things on there. It's like it says love one woman for the rest of my life. Mm-hmm. I've always just said my daughters. But yeah. And the rest of it, I think, they're kind of things more than characters. Or maybe that is the thing. Maybe it is a character of who I am, like a different character. Like I want to be remembered for adventure. I want to be remembered.
A lot of commas is the best answer I've ever heard in my entire life to that question, for the record. Like, that's just.
Yeah, I mean, I think about it, man. Like, when I was leaving the Army, I was terrified. I was like, man, what is this? What does this look like on the other side? And I'll never forget, somebody came up to me, and I think I've told you, we've talked about this before. And they were like, hey, it's okay. You're really good at a lot of stuff, and you'll be fine. Mm-hmm. And I remember being like, huh. Yeah. And then I remember thinking about it later on, like legitimately thinking about it. And I don't remember how it came up, but I remember being like, if soldier's the only thing on my tombstone, I failed. Mm-hmm. I love that designation. I love that title. I will, on a side note, it's one of my beefs with the U.S. Army versus the Marine Corps is I don't know if you know any of this, but like Marines,
No, I don't. I have nothing to add to this.
Marines are real big on the fact that they're Marines, right?
Okay. Yes,
they're not service members. They're not
right.
They're Marines. Well, soldiers. If you ever talk to a soldier, and I used to harp on people about this shit all the time. If you ever talk to soldiers or whatever, guys, they're always going to tell you, I'm in the Army. They never tell you they're a soldier.
They say I'm in the Army.
They say I'm in the Army, right? And it's funny because I was talking to my dad, and my dad was the one who made me realize it. My dad is. I don't think I've ever met a man who wanted to be a soldier more than my dad. He was like, when he was 17, he was like, I'm being a soldier. You know, like that's that. He's that dude. Like, he was a soldier for 29 years. 28 years, excuse me. And when you ask him, like, what are you? I'm a soldier. He wasn't in the Army. He was a soldier.
A soldier.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But I thought about that. I remember after having that conversation, I remember being like, if soldier's the only thing on my tombstone, I fucked up. I went wrong. And that's kind of been the catalyst for all this shit. It's like, I will never have a tombstone, but if I did have one, like I said, it should just be a bunch of commas.
That's great. Stacking commas. Yeah. I just want to be launched over into Niagara Falls. So that's
Hunter S. Thompson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I just want to be. I said I was going to be wheeled off so I could fight a bear for my last act.
Hell yeah.
You know, so I'm 78 years old. Just
push you into the woods covered in honey.
Yeah. One last go round, man.
Let's go.
One last go. Like me versus bear. Like
somebody's obligated to get me over. If you're listening to this, you're now legally a part of my dream of getting launched over into Niagara Falls. So someone has to make that happen. So that's what I want.
I'm gonna have to come up with a wild one now.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's it, man. That's how I want to be remembered. Stacking commas.
That's it. Oh, that's what I'll do. I'll have Matt throw me into Niagara Falls. Just launch just earn me, just yeet into Niagara Falls.
You get a catapult.
Yeah. Ooh, like the water balloon thing.
Yeah.
And everybody can hold it on the sides.
Old school trebuchet and just.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gladiator style. Launching shit at people. Like,
oh shit! What's that? Oh, there he goes. Like that.
Yeah, that's it.
Went out doing what he loved.
Yeah. Causing chaos.
Causing chaos.
Causing chaos.
That's right.
All right, man.
All right.
Appreciate you.
Cool.
Everybody.
Same to you.
Welcome to the tour. Be excellent, and we'll see you on the path.